Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast, and I've got to say this is a rarity of all the podcasts this year. I think this is the second person that I'm speaking with that is actually in the same town as in Melbourne, and he's not too far away from where I am as well. So, David Fastuca, welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Thanks, Darren. Yeah, if we knew, we could have caught up and done this over a coffee. That's for sure.
Imagine us sitting in a cafe, ordering some cappuccinos or some espressos, and we've got the big microphones on the table and say, hey, can you just quiet it down? Because we're recording a very important game-changing, community-changing, business-changing podcast.
Just stay quiet down around this, please. Thank you.
That's right.
Work getting done here.
So, David, looking forward to this. You're the CEO, co-founder of a company called Growth Forum, also the co-founder of Locomote, and an author of a soon-to-be released book. So when you're listening to this podcast, it will be on or around the 25th of March. So there'll be some information in the show notes. So make sure you get the book, the B2B Sales Playbook, which is an absolute ripper. Love to know. I always like asking this to the guests, David, in terms of just a little bit about your background, and specifically what has led you to do what you do today.
Yeah, awesome. Look, I'm a creative at heart. As a young kid, I loved drawing cartoon characters. Ninja Turtles was my favorite. I'm an 80s kid. And so I fell into the world of graphic design. I just felt like 8 hours would feel like 8 minutes when I'm doing that sort of work. So sort of my business journey began when I was 12. I started to do work for friends and family, doing designing logos and business cards and all that sort of jazz. My stepdad wanted me to become an accountant, so it really pushed me down that line. And I remember doing work experience for the local accountant, and it just felt like I was there for 4 years. It was only like 5 days, and I was okay at it. Like, it was numbers. I enjoy numbers, but it just was not for me. So I had to prove to him and myself that I can make a career out of this.
Yeah.
So I just worked hard during school. I picked all the right subjects that can give me enough free time to do my design work. And then during school, I was doing some projects that were actually paid projects, even through university. Nice. So I tried to be creative like that. But then, as the company grew, I always sort of fell into, well, I need work, so I need to be the salesperson. I never thought of it as sales. I've just thought of it as helping people through what I could do, which is a way to approach it. Fast forward sort of 10 years on from that, I moved out of the design agency, converted into like a website, type of agency, build marketing and that sort of stuff. But the service industry was obviously getting really sort of that small SME mid-tier was getting eaten a lot by the likes of Fiverr, Freelancer, and all the outsourced work that started to come in. And the talent was pretty good. And it was 1/10 of the price. So it was, iPhone came out, right? So again, showing the age, but the apps became a big thing. And my cousin and I, because we did a lot of work together and had a lot of businesses together, we always loved the idea of building a product, using our skill sets to do that, and then having one thing to focus on, then jumping from project to project to project. Yeah. So we eventually, through a lot of grit, bit of luck, fell into the world of this gentleman called Phil Wyman, who ran, quote unquote, an incubator before there was incubators. Basically, it was a mansion out in St Kilda in the streets of Melbourne, and it was just all businesses that he had invested in or had some ownership were working from this mansion. So it was a pretty cool, really energetic space. He had all the contacts, especially in Melbourne and nationwide. Super successful entrepreneur himself. And we just needed the contacts. We needed someone to open doors for us, and we just knew that we would execute. We'll back ourselves.
Yeah.
So eventually, a great opportunity occurred there in the business travel space. Very obscure industry. We'd never been on a business trip in our life because we'd always worked for ourselves. So we just, and that probably naive approach set us up for success because we just had a really blank canvas as how we could approach this
Mm.
from a, design perspective, from even from a go-to-market and sales perspective. We just did it the way, we were used to selling and doing things versus how the industry was done for decades.
Yeah.
So we sort of shook up that space. And that's probably what we're most known for today. We had a successful exit out
Hmm.
of that. We sold to a listed company out in the US in 2016. We had to stay on, my cousin and I, to 2018 with the golden handcuffs, exited, did a bit of investing and things like that, side projects. If I'm being honest, felt a bit lost during
Yeah.
the time. I think our identity becomes tied to the thing that we work on for a long time.
Yeah.
Um, COVID hit, so then compounded by then not being able to go out and look for something new and meet people. But then the company who we had sold it to, they're in the travel space. They obviously, like many businesses during COVID, got pretty ravaged during that time. Uh, None more so than probably travel, where
Mm.
not only did business stop trading, because a lot of travel is booked in the future, especially
Yeah.
business travel, all refunds will have taken place. So it wasn't like, okay, no revenue's coming through. It's no revenue and we're going negative. So
Mm.
it's a double whammy. So they were looking at offloading a bunch of investments that they had made over their journey to focus on their core. We got wind of that,
Yeah.
and it was probably a 12-month journey during COVID. We ended up acquiring the business back.
Okay.
So my cousin and I acquired the business back, and we had sort of two avenues. Do we just hold on to this great piece of IP? Had something like 30 to 50 mil invested into technology.
Yeah.
It was a pretty big beast, and ride it out and just try and flip it again for a quick sale.
Yeah.
Or do we try and build a book of customers? Yes, we couldn't trade, but once COVID would ease out, could we hockey stick out of COVID, have
Yeah.
a really good story, and then go raise funds to give it another crack?
Mm.
So I was at that time, I then enlisted the help of my good mate and now co-founder in Grow Forum, Luigi. And I'm like, dude, I need your help. Like he was a sales coach for and been a salesperson his whole life, absolute weapon in the space. And I said, this is the situation. How the heck am I going to sell this during
Yeah.
this time? So a lot of it came down to working on our ideal customer profile,
Yeah.
who it is we're going to go to. What are their current challenges at the moment? So their challenges are, we'll sell them to CFOs at that stage. It was our main target. They're busy buying all this remote technology, getting people set up at homes. They're pulling their hair out. It was probably a hectic time for if you're a
Yeah.
CFO or
Yeah.
anyone in senior management during that time, setting up this whole remote workforce. And he's like, you have to earn the right to get some time from these people because otherwise they're just going to tell you to F off.
Yeah.
They're too busy.
Mm.
It's like, go with the angle, change the messaging of what does life look like traveling after COVID? You probably, had been booking direct and, been a little bit cowboyish in your ways because,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
haven't had the need to have good corporate governance and duty of care.
Mm.
And that's where our platform really came into its own. So long story short, we revived our pipeline by going out with that messaging. It was just myself doing the sales front. My cousin was looking after the product and getting the company ready to raise with our engineering team. So during around 12 to 18 months, was able to generate 150 mil pipeline from that, of people that were interested. And then coming out of COVID, was able to close a good percentage of that.
Mm.
And good story. We put our pitch deck together, raised funds, went out to market. I stuck with the company for another year and a half after that. So 2023,
Yeah.
built a sales team around that, embedded the sales system and sales process. And then I was just like, I really loved what I did with Luigi, and I just got so much energy from that. I thought, it's probably my time to move on from Locomote. I was never interested, like I mentioned earlier, in business
Mm.
travel. I
Mm.
love sales and marketing,
Yeah.
and hence that was the birth of Growth Forum.
Wow. So there's a lot in that. There's a
It
lot
is.
and and one of the things I was really intrigued as you were talking about, you mentioned identity, you mentioned the ideal customer profile, but can you talk a little bit more about you were starting to talk to CFOs who, in that time, were so focused on, I guess, resetting the environment for their businesses because more and more people had to work from home, and now we're trying to get people back into the office.
Mm.
That you're a travel company, because I know at the time I did a lot of work with Qantas as they were coming out of COVID and getting the aircraft back in there. But there was a lot of aircraft sitting in deserts around the world doing nothing, so nobody was traveling, right? So, how hard was it in reflection? Because you did an interesting thing. You started to, I guess, plant seeds or future pace for what's going to happen post COVID so that these businesses would be prepared for what their travel, I guess, cycle is going to look like and frameworks are going to look like post COVID, which was really interesting because that was obviously a differentiator because I'm sure there's a lot of other travel companies were thinking, what the hell are we going to do? Nobody's traveling, so we've got no business. So can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that? Because that took courage because you probably didn't have a lot of revenue coming in. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, at that time.
No, it was all
The future
cost.
pace it. Yeah.
Yeah, like it was all cost, right? So like we were fortunate where the burn rate, so meaning the cost to run the business at that time was quite, was manageable. So Rossum and I had self-funded during that time. We had brought back some key personnel, mainly to work on the platform. And then I just said, dude, you look after that. Just let me run this marketing side and sales side, and I'll get you involved when I need. But
Mm,
let's just, have clear line of focus, and that's all I'll do. I said, if I'm on a purple patch with my cold calls, I'm gonna miss our meetings because I'm just on a heater, right? Just let me, I'm just in the zone. Um, so it was more of a I need to make this work, right? More than I want,
yeah.
because we had bought the company back, so there was an investment there. There was investment that we just hired people, so we don't want to
Mm,
screw them over. They took a risk coming in back into the business,
sure.
knowing there's no revenue there,
Yeah.
and on the hope that we're gonna raise. Um, and obviously a lot of ego in play,
Mm,
right? Like the market, we made a bit of noise that we acquired the company back. So, through PR and things like that. So it's like, okay, the guys have got back the business. Now, can they do it again?
mm,
Right. So it's like, we had belief that we could. So it was more of I'm just going to keep pushing until I get this through. And I did, a lot of cold calling during that time because I think it was a really easy time to get a hold of people,
yeah.
especially on their mobiles because they're all working from home.
Yeah.
And during the cold calling, and this is where the coaching and messaging really came into play, where it was like, I'm going to get a lot of objections, right? Like we all do, especially, doing, selling what I was selling at the time.
Yeah.
But I just address the objections straight up front, going, about to talk to you about business travel. You're probably going to tell me to get effed, right? But, right. So they're already like, like a little bit of a laugh or something like that. So, like, it didn't always work, but it took the guard down. And I just
Yeah.
tried to address the real objection up front.
Yeah.
I gave them a reason as to why they need to, have some extra time. Not right now. If you do have the time now, cool. If not, let's just, get some time in our calendars. I'll send it to
Yeah.
you right now. But like this is something that you need to be wary of, which you probably never had to worry about before. So it's a risk to the business. I didn't
Mm,
even worry about the cost,
yeah.
right? I just went on, this is the risk to the business coming out. And when you start traveling, you need to have this in place. Whether it's us or someone else, you need to have.
Yes.
So I was leading with insight. I was
Yeah.
leading with value. And whether they chose us or a competitor, they saw us as their advisor almost because we were coming to them with a point of view, something to help them in their role that they had a blind side to potentially.
Yeah.
That was a really good change point.
I love that because you mentioned earlier as well that your perception around sales is you're helping people, right? And I often talk about the fact when I'm running sales programs, it's, hey, just think about this, guys. Sales is the ultimate form of service. It is the ultimate form of service. But your customers are not necessarily wanting your products or your services. So you've got to lead with, as you say, value, insight. How do you educate them? Not how do you flog them a product? So through that process, you would have been building credibility that, no doubt, as you talked about the retention rate post with a pipeline of 150 mil, you're able to close a lot of that. Do you put that down to the fact that you led with service, you led with education, you led with educating them in terms of the risks that they needed to think about?
Yes, and also persistence,
Yeah,
right? Because, COVID was a 2-year journey.
yeah,
So this pipeline building and sales process was often, over the process of 12 to 15 months, if not more.
Mm.
So I had to remain front of mind. I had to, continue to follow up without the, hey, just put this to the top of your inbox crap that we all get. So, it was challenging. There was tenders. Some of these projects go out to tender. So I was, having to build a relationship with the procurement manager during those times. So there was a lot of moving parts.
Mm.
So a lot of that was just about being one on top of it. So, hopefully we all have a CRM that we're using, making sure that's really clean and up to date. All my tasks are there. So I was never waking up in the morning going, what am I going to do today? I'd always finish the day. I'll block some time out in my calendar to plan for
Yeah.
the next day. So I knew as soon as I, grab my coffee, open up the laptop, there was no wondering. It was like, okay, this is what the first 2 hours of the day, this is what I got to do
Yeah.
and go get it. So it's just about being really diligent and just hitting that repetition. And it didn't always go to plan. Like, when does it ever? But if it could go to plan 80% of the time, most cases, then I'm on the right path. So
Yeah.
that really helped, to build that pipeline and also to close it as well.
Yeah. Love it. And there's a lot of lessons in there, persistence, time blocking, and we'll talk about systems as well, because as you evolve and as you get bigger, you've got to have systems in place that is not just solely reliant on you as an individual, but
Yeah.
you can be leveraged and others can come in and follow that system and get the same results. So exiting Locomote, starting growth forum, what was it that led you to that? What was it about that what you do now that, I mean, you said before that, hey, I've never been in trouble. Let's go do that. But what was it about what you do now in terms of was it some key lessons out of Locomote that sort of was almost organic to say, hey, we can now make an impact across a wider spectrum of businesses and niches, or was it something else?
No, I think you nailed it, right? So like, pretty much, I remember the words verbatim when I said to Luigi, I'm like, if you can help, the fact that you helped me do what I did within Locomote and selling to the people we're selling to, just by following this system, and it was really simple. It was just that I needed that guidance and I needed to put in the reps and sets. I'm like, dude, more people need to know about this.
Yeah.
And I think we can really package it up in a way that can be cost effective and can really have a really cool impact. Like,
Mm.
we just before jumping onto this podcast, we had our weekly group coaching call with our members, and someone just said, we applied this thing that you said on last time's call, and we closed the deal, and it's been taking me a year to try and get this. I'm like, that's awesome. Like, we're having a material impact on that person's individual life, on the business, which then reflects onto their team. Like, sales, it's such a powerful thing. If a company has a good sales engine and a good motion, they can do a lot of good
Yeah.
with it. And without it, then they're just relying on the next raise, and it just becomes that raising, hamster wheel.
Yeah.
So we think that, sales can cure all, not always. You need a good product and you need a good, to be doing some good out there with what your product or service. But in essence, I haven't come across anyone that says, I wouldn't like more better customers within the business that stay with us longer, that pay with us more, and that love being with us. Like,
Yeah.
what a great, business and life you can live if you've got something like that going.
100%. So let me ask you this question, because I often like asking this question of salespeople, but also non-salespeople. So I'm going to ask an entrepreneur. When you think of sales, right, what do you think about?
Yeah, you get the instant, and we show this slide all the time of like the little Danny DeVito in the car salesman, like, trying to just flick you the next thing. But look, we try and sort of shift that, mindset of a salesperson is there to help guide you on making the
Yeah.
right choice.
Yeah.
Now, if you can guide them on, understanding one that they have a particular problem that they may not know of or see yet, tick. Two, can you help them with that? Okay, great. Now, you might not be the right provider for them. So the best salespeople are the ones that are like, okay, we're probably not a good fit, but let me introduce you to John, Sally. They'll be able to help you out.
Mm.
Just being like, if you can't help them within your business and you refer them to someone else, instantly the buyer's like, holy crap, I've
Mm,
never, it's such a rare thing, which, good or bad, it's such a rare thing that's a salesperson not just trying to flog me what they're doing and hand me off to customer support, and then it becomes their problem, that they
yeah,
actually care. I've seen the reverse happen, gone, oh, maybe we can work with you. Oh, maybe we don't need that feature that you don't have right now. The trust just goes up. And that's not
yeah,
the intent, but often that can become the result of you just being sincere and
yeah.
knowing that why would you want to bring on a customer in the business that who may not be a good fit and they're going to churn out just so you can get your comms. So this is where everything needs to be aligned, from the founder, the executive leader, sales or marketing,
Yeah.
not just about bringing deals through, it's the right deals as well that stay longer.
It's a great point, and there are so many organizations out there that have people within those organizations who suffer from a significant bout of commission breath.
Yeah.
And
You can
they,
smell it.
oh, totally. And the fact that you can go into any sales conversation and almost be removed from the outcome, it's more of now a pull strategy versus a push strategy, and say, you know what, if I can help you, fantastic. I'll let you know how that might happen. But if not, I'm going to point you to the right direction. Or I might even say, you know what, you probably don't need this at all. And that would be serving. And as you just said, it's amazing how many people will turn around and say, hang on, no, 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 no. I don't need all that. I actually want to work with you. How do I do that?
Yeah, I had one the other week where we're looking at this marketing tech vendor, to buy within the business. And they're like, you need to make a decision by X of this time. And I'm like, why? And
Mm,
they're like, well, that's when we close the books for our thing. I'm like, I don't give a shit when you close your books. What's that got to do with me? I'm like, help me. Like, I can't make a decision yet. I've told you when my budget opens up. I'm not going to change that for you. Well, I was like, is this guy for real? I'm like, but it happens. And this is a big name brand, doing really well. And I'm just like, man, how much deals are you losing just because of that, just being pushy over the line? Like, you're here to serve, number one.
yeah, that's it.
So yeah, you can definitely smell the commission breath from a lot of people, unfortunately.
Well, you can, and it's one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons I left corporate, because I was running sales teams in big companies like Telstra and Optus, and it was just endlessly frustrating that all the senior leaders, all they would be interested in is, well, we're going to close this month, this quarter, because we've got to hit our numbers, etc., and literally do whatever you take, whatever it takes to get this number closed. And we would have, as sales leaders, we would have, close we got to the end of the quarter, it would go from a weekly cadence
Hmm.
to a twice weekly cadence to a daily cadence to a twice daily cadence. And the expectation was the cadence at the beginning of the day, in terms of your forecast, needed to be improved upon by the end of the day, right? And if you add up all the time you spent just navel gazing and trying to forecast and say, you think we're going to do this, you could have actually closed a lot more deals and planted a lot more seeds. But the
Yeah.
funny thing was, at the end of the financial year, the customers were still there. The customers still wanted to do business, right? But the customers don't necessarily adhere to your timelines. They adhere to their own timelines, right?
Yeah.
So it was almost like, well, we want to push this because we need to get our numbers. And the customer rightly says, well, who cares? How does that affect me?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, when marketing teams they put out this lovely customer journey. First, they're going to consume this, then they're going to step here, then they're going to book a call. Then after a call, this is going to happen. It's like, yeah, that's great when there's unicorns and rainbows and everything like that. But the journey from a buying is all over the place.
Totally.
They'll jump from an email, they might check you out on LinkedIn, go to a YouTube. They'll consume anything and everything their way.
Hmm.
What you need to do, within the marketing engine is just ensure that you have all the material and content across the platforms where your customers are that they can consume when they're ready.
Yeah.
Now, not to say you can't design a customer journey, because you need to have one.
Yeah.
Don't think that the people are going to flow through this nice built out funnel and it's just all going to be magic.
Hmm.
It rarely works out like that, right? And you get the false positives where one or two out of 100 fall in and you're like, it's working. But it's like, not everyone goes through that process. They'll go
No.
through even an inbound lead. So
Yes.
someone that's come to you, they've inquired on your site, they've showed interest. You still got to go through the process, and they may not still be ready to buy. They might be
Yeah.
6 months out from buying. They're just doing some research.
Yeah.
So the process, everyone's buying patterns are different. So it's really, yeah, you could do your best stance to try and outlay this magical journey and hope for the best, but plan for people buying in their own way.
Yeah, and that's a great point because we've all been brought up. well, certainly I have in corporate sales to almost be indoctrinated into the Kool-Aid of the company sales process.
Yeah,
This is the process we go through, right? So whether it be a 5-step, whether it be a challenger methodology, spin methodology, Miller Hyman, whatever the case might be, it's the sales process. But at the end of the day, the customers didn't attend the same sales training as the sales teams, right? So they've got their own process and it's their buying journey. And as you said, they're almost a unique for every single different customer. There might be some commonalities, but us as entrepreneurs, as business people, as sales leaders, we need to understand what is the journey that the customer is going on, what's the decision making criteria they have, what is the process they have to go through, and how do we plug into that and be there at the right moments that we're top of mind when they're ready to go from one transition piece to the next. And if you do that, you're going to be in a position where you are top of mind and more likely to get better deals. You just got to be
exactly. And
patient.
there's a way where obviously you need a system and a framework, right? Otherwise, you can't. It's really challenging to grow a team and to build some repeatability into the business.
Yeah.
But it's not been so black and white with
Mm,
that. Like there's always the gray, there's always the nuance, and that's okay. So when you're setting up your sales system, your framework, your CRM, allowing for those situations to take place,
yes.
and giving your team a little bit of freedom to use their creativity based on the people they're speaking with. That's where the human to human interaction comes in. You need to enable your team to allow for those corner cases there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it will feel robotic. You can get replaced by AI if you're just doing that really black and white sort of approach. And it can feel like you're not listening to the customer because you're just trying to go through this process because this is what my boss has told me.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a great point you raised there.
So we talk about, and let's talk about systems because I know the work that you do, it's all about, well, how do I systemize this, right? Because any business that needs to grow, any business that is taking themselves to the next growth level needs to have some sort of system that people can replicate because you've worked with a lot of founders and you've been a founder yourself and often the founders are the number one salesperson. And what I've found dealing with a lot of entrepreneurs and founders is they are often the best salesperson, and it's very
Yeah,
difficult for them to replace themselves with a person who can get the same sort of result. So,
yeah.
can you just talk about the importance, in your experience and what you do now in terms of putting systems in place and some specific, I guess, not so much ideas, but some things to be conscious of when putting these systems together?
Awesome. So basically, I couldn't agree more there, right? The founder has that aura, that passion, that's really hard to replicate, right? So the way we sort of work with founders and business leaders is let's try and dissect the plan, like the system that's in your head that's been working. Let's put it down
Yeah.
into a playbook that others can review and can leverage off. But before we do that, let's put it down. Let's create the system in a visual way, whether it's in your CRM or in a document that lives online that's continually looked at and doesn't just gather dust. Then let's execute from that, right? So let's not try to go too creative, you know,
Mm,
that you've probably been used to because you're the founder. So let's try and stick to here, the playbook, and let's build some guardrails around it. So some guidance based on the next 5 deals you're going to close. Then once we feel we've got some repeatability here and you feel like it's working and the knowledge here is transferable,
mm,
then we can help install an outsourced seller into the business that can, pick this up and sell for you. They just need to understand the product and service that you offer.
yeah.
But here's the kicker. Don't expect them to sell at the same level that you're selling at, right? If you can get someone at the 70, 80% of the output and results that you generated, then that's great,
Mm,
right? Because they're not just not going to have that will, that desire that the founder has. You might come across a unicorn here or there that
yeah.
does, and great, but that's the exception, not the
Mm,
norm. So if they're doing 70 to 80% of the results that you once did, but now you've got all that time back into
mm,
yourself to be the founder and lead that role and start to grow a team,
yeah.
then happy day. So it's a bit of a 3-step process with us. Dissect the information from the founder. We build a playbook with you, then the founder executes on that to ensure that it works, and then we iterate until we feel both of us that it's working and it's repeatable, then install the sales team to pick that up, and to give you the time back into your day to focus on the business rather than in the business.
Nice. So it's not like you're saying, "Hey, we have the best sales methodology ever. So let me give you the Growth Forum sales methodology TM trademark."
Yep. That's it. Look, we do have one, but like we said, it's not for everyone, right?
No.
And the way you sell, yes, there can be variants to it. So we don't prescribe, like we in our book that we mentioned earlier, we talk about all the different sales methodologies that are out there.
Mm,
And we tell you, test them, have a look
mm.
at them, see what feels right for you.
Yeah.
Here's what we do, here's what we coach on and what we've shared. If it feels right for you, cool, give it a shot, adopt it. But the truth is, so long as you got some system there and you got some guardrails around that, then having a system in place is better than not having anything at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you
Absolutely.
can find something out there and then mold it to your brand, mold it to your liking, your tonality, and your process and your customers.
Yeah.
But you need something there in
That's it.
place.
That's it. Because often I've heard some colleagues of mine talk about, and this is not saying that you can actually go and grab monkeys and they become great salespeople, but their thought process is if we have a really robust system or robust process, we could literally grab anybody off the street and with the right training, put them in the right environment, they should be able to get a level of result. Now, as you said, it may not be the best result according to what the founder gets, but we should be able to teach them because the process is I guess, the gives you some consistency.
Yeah, obviously you need to get people to actually care.
Yeah, yeah.
They believe in what you're selling and what you're doing because that will come through
Mm,
on the calls if they're picking up the phone, which they should be. That comes through with that energy. They might ask the extra question to
yeah,
try and get to the root cause of the problem rather than just accepting the first objection and hanging up. So that's where the ongoing coaching and training element comes into play, where you're reviewing their calls, you're understanding what issues is the seller having, what are the results they're getting, and providing some guidance
mm,
for them to become better. Because for all of us out there that are selling, we know we have our good days and our bad days, and sometimes we have a day or even a week where we feel untouchable. And then you have a week where you feel like, how the heck am I even doing this? I'm the worst salesperson in the world. And we go through that too. Yeah.
yeah,
Like there's days where like I'll just push all my other tasks to the side because I'm just like I'm on a purple patch here.
yeah,
I'm just going to keep going until the day's done. And then some days where I'm just stopping. I'm just not in the right frame of mind because your mindset needs to be on for it. And I'm just going to focus on something else that's going to give me energy and then come tackle this later in the afternoon.
yeah. Yeah, it's like some days you can't even put two words together.
Yeah. And then other days you can tackle any objection. You can have a bit
Yeah,
of
it's
fun
all
on the
good.
phone, cop a no, cop a swear word, and be like, okay, no worries, smile, move to the next one. And then some days, there might be something at home that's hitting you, and you take that objection to heart. So yeah,
Absolutely.
where emotions come into play, right?
Totally, totally. And this is why we're human beings because we are predictably unpredictable.
Exactly.
So obviously we need to have systems in place. Can you talk about, because I want to talk about setup for success and what sort of things we have to have in place to support a good ecosystem. But from a leader's point of view, whether that be a founder, a chief revenue officer, sales leader, CEO, whatever, um, the importance of time blocking and the importance of, and this is not time management per se, and I love your take on this in terms of how do we set ourselves up for success? Because you mentioned before that you'll often spend some time at the end of the day getting really clear on what are some of the, I guess, priority tasks for you the next day. So you don't have to open the laptop in the next day and think, oh, okay, what am I going to do now? You just get into it because it becomes almost automatic.
Yeah.
Some ideas that you guys use or you've used for yourself and you have for your clients around, I guess, productivity hacks or time blocking.
Yeah, look, and it's not so much a hack, it's just more of like getting into a routine. Right. So like for me, I like to, I'm an early riser.
Yeah.
So I'm up quite early. I like to try and get my sort of health stuff done before the kids wake up, and it doesn't always go to plan, but that's the goal. But then from sort of like 9 to 11 is my prospecting time where I'm reaching out, I'm trying to do new business development, and I'll just block that out. Now, lately with leading up to the book launch, I've been a bit lazy with that and allowing meetings to come in
Yeah.
because there's another priority. But generally, in those 2 hours, no one can book a time on my calendar. It's blocked out. It's for me, and I need to tick it off. And then I have an accountability partner, which is my co-founder, and we're like, "How'd you go in those 2 hours?" Okay,
Yep.
I spoke to X amount of people, X amount of bookings, da, 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 da. And we talk about it. And the that accountability partner is super important because it's like if I'm going to have a lazy session or if I'm going to skip it, I'm going to have to tell him. Yeah. So it's like it's a little bit of guilt factor. So look, it's good and it's a little bit of healthy competition as well because I'm like, how'd
Yep.
you go? Oh, I did that. Oh, that's crap. That
I did better
having
than you.
I did better than you. So having that little bit of competition is good, a bit of a drive. I put it down to like I trained my daughter, my 12-year-old on football or
Yep.
soccer, and we're doing one-on-one. And I could tell she's getting a little bit lethargic and a little bit lazy. I'm like, all right, I'm going to bring two of your teammates to join us. Right? Bang, intensity level up. Right. And not just for her as well, but for me. Look, all right, we
Yeah,
start at
absolutely.
10, we start at 10. We're not going to start at 10:30. So it's just having that, accountability really helps.
Yeah.
But just seeing that in your calendar and seeing it compound after time, because obviously if you're starting fresh and you're building a pipeline from zero, it can be scary because
Yep.
your pipeline's empty. But
Yep.
as it starts to build over time, and as you start to get those deals coming through, and then the closing starts, so long as the thing that we see people fall off is then they go, I don't need to prospect no more. My pipeline is super healthy. That's when things start to decline. And it's not
Yep.
instant. It's like a
Yep.
small chip. It might take a quarter or even 6 months. And
Yep.
then you're like, oh, I'm not closing as much lately. It's because you're not doing your pipeline development,
That's it.
right?
That's
The
it.
best salespeople are the ones where aren't desperate for the new deal because they know they've got a lot of healthy other deals
Yes.
that they can forecast to close at any given time. So this is why you always need to be prospecting, and then that pressure valve, will ease off because you've always got contacts that you can go down to and new
Yep.
opportunities in there. The stress will come when you've got a thin pipeline and you're hoping that these two or three close and you're putting everything into them. And then what do? You're following up. You're sounding desperate. The commission breath
That's
comes in,
right.
right? Right. And this all compounds from just blocking out some time.
That's it.
Depending, everyone's time allowance will be different, but if you're a seller, it should be majority of your day
Yeah.
on prospecting, and then leaving any sort of manual CRM update tasks to, the time where it's hard to connect with someone towards the
Yep.
end of the day, end of week. If you're depending on your work hours, like I do, catch up on emails and all the admin sort of tasks while I'm watching some brain dead TV. So that's when I'll do those tasks there that are just easy to do. But we fall into a trap where we start to fill selling time with those tasks. And then you go, oh, well, my day's done. I can't call someone now at 6 o'clock, seven
Yeah.
o'clock. I'll do
Yeah.
it tomorrow. And then you just lost a day of prospecting.
That's it.
So it's like going to gym. It's a muscle. You need to work at it every day. If you don't, then you start to lose the muscle.
And I think it's a great point you're making. I think a lot of sales people, irrespective of the industry and irrespective of the size of the business they operate in, think that prospecting is all about, well, I've got to get a sale, right? So I do a lot of work with, and I've spoken to a lot of people that run SDR type companies, and they do a lot of cold calling, and they do booking meetings for businesses. And they say the purpose of the cold call, the purpose of the prospect is not to get a sale. The simple purpose is to uncover an interest and get a meeting. That's it, a conversation.
Yeah.
So you just got to put it into perspective. And you are going to get people who, whatever method of prospecting you're doing, whether it is the cold calling, whether it is you using warm lead generation, whether you're using LinkedIn or whatever the case might be, there'll be a percentage of people that will just say, bugger off.
Yeah.
That's okay, right?
And you might have just caught them at a bad time. You might have caught them as they're going to a meeting or they just stubbed their toe or whatever it is, right? You get people at different times of the day and so like there's that point there. Get them at the right time of the day, out of your control.
Yeah,
Right frame of mind they're in, out of your control. Right? You can only control what you can control, and that's your activity, your
yeah,
output, your attitude, your mindset. So, it's expect to get those objections, expect to get the occasional abrupt person on the phone, and that's okay, right? That's
yeah,
going to happen so long as you expect that to
yeah.
happen. Not
Yeah.
everyone's picking up the phone and happy and skipping and, no, I'll take your phone call.
That's right.
Yeah,
I've
it's
just
on
been
right
sitting here
now.
waiting for you to call me, David.
Yeah, thank you. I had this exact problem and I'm looking for this solution right now.
Oh my
You know,
God.
only 3% of the market in your market, as the latest sort of Gartner reports
Yeah.
shows, are in that awareness and ready to buy mode.
Correct.
Right? 3%. So that means of the 100 people you're going to contact this week, only three are
Yeah.
going to be like, okay, yeah, I'm ready for this.
That's
The
it.
other 97% won't know. The good percentage of them won't even know that they've got this problem. Then
Correct.
the vast majority won't even know who the heck you are unless you're working for some big brand name, right? So why should I trust you? So you need to earn that trust. You know,
That's
we
it.
need to be cognizant of that.
And the other stat around that is that, and it hasn't changed in the last 10 years, is 80% of deals that are done come between the fifth and 12th plus contact, right?
Exactly. I
So,
think now it's even later,
yeah,
right?
and you
So
mentioned it before.
persistence.
It's persistence, but it's not, it's like you said before, it's not a case of, hey David, I'm just putting this note back in your inbox at the top there. So hey, how you going? It's what's a valuable follow-up you can have, right? Because if we
Yeah.
know there's 3% of buyers that are in the buying zone right now, we don't know which one is which, right? We don't know who's in that 3%, but you've got to go through the numbers. And this is why sales is a numbers game ultimately. You've got to have the right mindset. So talk to me about, I guess, the work that you've done and the clients that you work with in terms of how much emphasis do you place on mindset? Obviously, there's a system to follow and you follow the
Yeah.
bouncing ball, but the system is only going to be as good as the person who is executing that system in terms of what they're thinking and what their attitude is and mindset is at the time.
It's huge. Look, and often, like if anyone that's gone through a few different type of courses and programs before, the best ones out there will have a section on mindset, and often it can feel a bit fluffy.
Yeah.
And yeah, we talk about mindset. Skip. I just want the gold. How do I do it? But the mindset is just the biggest thing ever. Like your mindset sets up your day.
Yeah.
So we talk a lot about this selling mindset and the right type of mindset that you need to have, that learning mindset to have into play, which is such a key part of any founder and seller out there. And a lot of that comes from being confident in your
Yes.
message and what you're going to say. Being confident when you pick up the phone that you've got something here is just dead set crazy for them to say no to.
Yes.
I'll give you an example where, we do some work with big B2B fintech companies, Stripe being one of them, and we've helped their team with their go-to-market and their playbook. So our approach is we go to smaller fintechs and go, guys, we've helped the likes of Stripe, who,
Yes.
quote unquote, they would probably admire on their team on how they built their playbook out. Now, how would you like to see, the framework that's in
Hmm.
place? No sale. You can take the learnings here, implement it yourself, or if it's something that resonates with you, cool. We can share a little bit how what we do and what we work. But
Yep.
either way, you're going to get some gems from here
Yep.
that you can probably apply.
Yep.
Like you'd be stupid to say no unless you're on a tear and you've already nailed it, and then good luck to you. But like to get that sort of playbook on how they scaled and the type of things they do. And obviously, we don't share specifics and any special IP, but the framework in itself,
Yeah.
what you can apply to your business
Yeah.
to achieve, something similar.
Yeah.
It's just coming from a place of value. And then we just
Yeah.
keep on harping on that same message, right?
Yes.
Because we follow an outbound cadence of it's not just one channel. So it's not just email, it's not just phone, there's SMS, there's social, and there's video elements because you need to
Yes.
be where your customer
Customers are.
is most active,
Correct.
right? Email is easiest, right? And there's 1,000 email AI tools now. But
Yeah.
the thing is, because it's so easy, so many people are doing it,
Yes.
right? So it's easy to become ignored on
Yeah.
email. But then
Yeah.
if I send you a LinkedIn request, if I leave a voicemail and I
Yes.
reference the email, yeah, the email will get the open rate. So there's
Yes.
a bit of a false positive there. You need to make sure that you're doing these other things and you put the juice into where, they've got more time, which is the email. So we would
Totally.
often reference, hey, Darren, I just dropped you an email. The subject line is sharing. Have a look. If it makes sense, let's connect.
Yeah.
Right? I don't nothing else on the voicemail.
No,
Right.
that's
If
it.
I do connect with them on the phone, then I'm pretty much just going through that type of script of what I had
Yeah.
in the email, just in a more casual way
Yeah.
of would it make sense for us to grab some time so I can share this for you? It's a visual thing, so I need to show you on screen.
Yeah.
Right. Um, so earning the right there and then just continually following up.
Yeah.
And it's not just about pumping the same message. It'd be, I might just share a bit of the framework, share a tactic that they did, share
Mm.
a story about one of the, John S did this and generated Y.
Yeah.
Do you have anyone in your team that's suffering from the same sort of issue?
Yeah.
Right? And get them thinking about their team and internally. The
Mm.
good thing is if you can get them thinking about their potential problems, can generate a response.
Totally.
So yeah, a bit of a long-winded answer from that question, Darren, but it's an important one to really go with.
It is, and in fact, I'm just thinking I'm running a sales workshop, sales excellence day tomorrow for a medical company, and a lot of it is going to be around sales excellence mindset. And
Yep,
I know there'll be people in the room that are saying, "Oh, really? We have to talk about mindset?" Well, yes, we do because this is the game, right? Because
yeah,
it's not so much what you say, it's everything behind what you say that sends such a powerful message to the people that you're trying to communicate to. So for people listening to this, please do not ever underestimate the power of your attitude and the power of your mindset because it's
exactly.
huge. It's huge. So I want to talk a little bit about your playbook that's coming out, but just before we do, setting up for success. So we've talked about system, we've talked about mindset, we've talked about, I guess, the methodology and the avenues to get access to your market. Are there any other top of mind areas that sales leaders listening to this, founders, that they need to be conscious of to make sure they're set up for the opportunity for sustainable success?
Yeah, like I think it would be stupid not to mention AI
Yeah.
and the tools that are out there. I guess the best way to look at those tools that are out there as how can they help your sales teams do the mundane work,
Mm,
um, and let them to focus on their core excellence, and that's connecting with someone. Like
yes.
if it's over video call or in person, that's the things where you need to enable your team to spend more time doing.
Yeah.
And whether it's customer research or customizing XYZ, leverage all these amazing tools out there
Mm,
for that. Enable your team to win and succeed more. So give them more time for where the customer wants them to, and that's earning their trust, spending time with them, and to make them feel like they're making the right decision.
yeah.
I think we need to spend a bit of time and also a bit of budget to invest into those type of tools that can enable your team to win.
Love it. Love it. So, as we're recording this, it's not quite towards the end of March, but people listening to this, it's probably going to be post the 25th of March. The book now is out, B2B Sales Playbook, and I'm going to read the thing. It says a tactical guide to build a flood of qualified leads for your business.
Yeah,
So,
this has been a big passion project for Luigi and I. Look, we obviously not you can't serve everybody. Yeah. Like
yes.
you've got limited capacity. So we were like, what can we do that we could, impact founders all over the world? Not just founders, sellers and execs. What can we give them? So we basically give our whole program condensed into this book. It's not a book, and there's different journeys you can take in the book. If you
Yeah.
can read it front to back, you can pick a problem that you might be having in your sales process and go straight to that chapter. It is a very no fluff, highly actionable book where we don't just talk the talk. We show examples. We give templates and resources, so you get access to all of our gold that's out there, and you get coaching. So once you sign up to get the resources and templates, we then put you on a 10-day email cadence that coaches you chapter by chapter.
Okay.
Want to make sure you push through the book. So you'll get a daily reminder. Here's the summary of the next chapter, and here's what you get to learn. And then here's the link to the resources that we reference in this chapter. So it's a highly tactical playbook, taking you from step one all the way through to step 50, right? And it's even got like a little bonus section there of how my co-founder Luigi closed an 8-figure deal. But also it talks really open and honest there about how he stuffed it up at the start.
Yeah.
So he interviewed the person who originally sold to out in News Corp.
Okay.
And it was a really cool convo. So the whole transcript is in there, and on the audio book you got the live interview. But the buyer talks about how Louis stuffed up, but then how he recovered, and then why it initially started off as I think it was around a 50 grand deal, probably butchering the numbers, but ended up turning into an 8-figure deal as Louis really went deeper into the problem and went beyond probably the
Yeah.
role of a typical salesperson.
Yeah.
But just by listening and understanding and becoming really close to the customer, he turned, what was, his CEO at the time, Louis, was like, just close the deal. And Louis like, just give me a little bit more time. Ended up being the biggest deal that company had ever done in their history, even to date. So I won't tell Louis to his face, but he smashed it on that one. It's fun, like how Locomote's my sort of thing where I put my hat on to date. That deal there and what Louis went through to close that, but become the trusted advisor is what he's really known for as well.
And that's the I mean, as you were talking about there, I mean, Luigi's the kind of guy that he certainly doesn't have commission breath, but he has a solution, just like you have a solution that's going to solve a problem. Our opportunity though, and our whole remit is to try and understand, do you have a problem that you want to solve? Do you have a problem that you know you have? And I'm here to help diagnose that problem, right? So if I do that ethically, and you mentioned before, he's gone from a $50,000 opportunity to an 8-figure opportunity, and you mentioned a few things, and one of the key things that stood out for me was listening and patience. And if you're there to be of service to a client, not there to close a deal because you've got your sales manager riding your back to try and get this deal done, then not only will you give yourself an opportunity of closing this deal, the deal could be bigger than it was originally, as in this case, but what have you done to plant seeds for future deals in terms of
Yeah.
your credibility? Because you're more likely to have this customer wanting to do business with you again. But not only that, tell all their people that, hey, I had a phenomenal experience with this person because of the way they dealt with me and the way they made me feel through the process.
It has a ripple effect.
Totally.
Right? And like Louis talks about having the abundance mindset,
Yeah.
right? Where don't feel like you need to close every deal. There'd be many, many times when it's just not a right fit or not the right time, and being okay with that and saying, sure, no worries, cool.
Yeah.
Whenever you're ready, come back to me. And just having that, abundance mindset and being cool, calm, and collected,
Yeah.
really would help you in your career.
It's an awesome way to kind of wrap this up, because mentioned before, you've got to continue to be prospecting. You've got to continue to put yourself out there, ask questions, be curious, look for value you can add, bring insights. But equally, remove yourself from the pressure of having to get the perfect outcome, because not everybody's going to be ready and they're not always going to be in that 3%, right? So as long as you've got a really healthy pipeline and you're continuing to talk to people and bring value to people, then the inevitability is you're going to close deals. It's as simple as that, right? But sometimes you have to ask, because I've got a lot of clients that, for whatever reason, are afraid to ask the question. You got to ask the question.
Oh, you definitely need to ask the
Don't
question.
just think that osmosis is going to close the deal for you.
It's been a pleasure chatting today.
So it's been brilliant, David. I know you got other things to get to, but with people wanting to know more about yourself, connecting with you, know more about Growth Forum, but also getting a copy of the book, which I suggest they do, the B2B Sales Playbook, where's the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, just go to growthforum.io/book, and then that will direct you to your nearest online store to grab the book. And if you want to connect with me directly, just find me on LinkedIn, David Fastuca. I'm super active on there. And I'll give you some other additional resources. If you mention this podcast, I'll even throw in the free audio book of the sales playbook as well, just so we know that people are listening and got some out of it.
How good's that? That's brilliant. I'll put that in the show notes as well. So awesome, mate. So hey, absolute pleasure. The man all the way from Werribee.
And the West.
Talking to the man from New Gisborne. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm so glad we connected, and thanks for being a great guest on the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast.
Thank you so much, Darren.
Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com, and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.